You know that feeling when you're grinding at work, constantly thinking about money, but you're absolutely exhausted, your relationships are suffering, you're checking your portfolio obsessively every single day, and if you stop for even a second, you feel like everything falls apart? Sound familiar? Well, what if building real wealth doesn't actually require destroying your mental health and social life? Most people think financial independence is brutal suffering for decades. But the people who actually build serious wealth without burning out figure out how to make the process automatic and sustainable. Spend way too much time thinking about money, personal finance, and why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth while others burn themselves out chasing quick wins and then give up entirely. If you're tired of the feast or famine cycle, the emotional roller coaster, and you actually want to understand how to build wealth while maintaining a life that's worth living, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps shift your perspective on what's actually possible. Before we dive into the systems that actually work, let me ask you something. When you think about rich people, what comes to mind? Maybe you picture someone working 80-hour weeks, grinding away at a startup, completely obsessed with making money at the expense of everything else. Or maybe you imagine someone who inherited wealth, got lucky with a business deal, or made some brilliant investment that went to the moon. And yeah, some wealthy people do fit those descriptions. But here's what most people don't realize. The people who build generational wealth, who reach actual financial independence without sacrificing their sanity in the process, they're not grinding harder than everyone else. They're actually working smarter. They figured out a way to automate their wealth building so it happens in the background while they're living their actual life. And that's the entire game right there. It's not about finding the fastest path to $1 million. It's about building a sustainable system that generates wealth consistently without requiring constant attention and mental energy from you. Let's talk about something that most financial advice completely gets wrong. That's the idea that to build wealth, you have to operate from a scarcity mindset. You have to be obsessed with saving every single dollar. You have to say no to everything fun. You have to treat money like it's this rare, precious resource that disappears the moment you spend it. And yeah, avoiding wasteful spending is important, but operating purely from scarcity burns you out. When you're constantly restricting yourself, eventually you break and blow your savings on something stupid. The people who build wealth sustainably shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Instead of asking, how can I save one more dollar, they ask, how can I earn one more dollar? Instead of obsessing over expenses, they focus on building assets that generate income. That shift changes the entire emotional experience. You go from feeling deprived to feeling like you're building something that works for you. Now, I'm not saying ignore your spending, but the path to real wealth isn't just cutting expenses. It's about creating systems that generate income while you focus on things that matter. Successful wealth builders understand you can't randomly save and hope it works. You need clarity about what you're building. That starts with setting realistic financial goals. The difference between someone who builds wealth and someone who stays broke is usually that one has clear targets and the other doesn't. So decide, what does financial independence look like? Maybe retire at 50, maybe have 6 months of expenses saved, maybe own rental properties generating passive income. Whatever it is, you need to know specifically what you're working toward. Then work backwards. If you want to retire at 50, how much do you need saved? Once you have these numbers, your savings goal becomes concrete instead of vague. You go from playing defense with your finances to playing offense with a strategy. And once you have a clear goal, you can start building a budget that actually gets you there. Now, budgeting gets this terrible reputation because people think it means tracking every single dollar and never having fun. But a budget is just a spending plan. It's telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. And here's what most people don't understand about budgeting. It's not restrictive if you do it right. It's actually liberating. When you know exactly what you're spending on rent, groceries, transportation, entertainment, and savings, you're not constantly wondering if you can afford something. You already know. And the psychological freedom that comes from that is massive. You can actually relax because you're not operating in a constant state of financial anxiety. But here's where most people mess this up. They create a budget, follow it perfectly for 2 months, then get tired of tracking everything and abandon it completely. And the reason that happens is because they're trying to do it all manually. They're trying to willpower themselves through their financial plan every single day. And willpower is finite. You have a limited amount of it, and you're probably using it up on a million other things. So here's the game-changing insight. You don't need willpower, you need automation. Think about this for a second. What if your wealth building happened completely automatically? What if the moment your paycheck hit your account, money flowed to the right places without you having to think about it or do anything at all? You'd never see it, you'd never have the opportunity to spend it, and you'd be building wealth without the constant mental battle. This is the secret that separates people who actually build wealth from people who talk about building wealth. Automation removes the decision fatigue in the emotional component. It turns good intentions into reliable actions. When your savings and investments happen automatically, you're not fighting yourself every month. You're not questioning whether you should save or spend. The system is already running. You set it up once, and then it just works in the background while you live your actual life. The beauty of this is that you're not depriving yourself at all. Most people think automation means you have to live like a monk. But here's the secret. If you automate your savings before you see the money, you don't feel deprived because you never had access to it in the first place. You simply adjust your lifestyle to what you have after your savings have been automatically removed. And suddenly, wealth building becomes effortless instead of this constant mental struggle. Let me paint you a practical picture of how this works. Let's say you make $75,000 a year. That's about $2,300 every 2 weeks after tax. You set up your automation to immediately transfer $400 to savings, $300 to retirement accounts, and $200 to investments. That happens instantly without you ever seeing it. You're left with about $100 to $400 every 2 weeks to cover your actual living expenses. And here's the crazy part. Most people can live a completely normal, comfortable life on that amount. You can still go out with friends, you can still enjoy hobbies, you can still have fun. But now you're building wealth automatically in the background. After 1 year, you've accumulated $2,400 in savings plus $13,000 in investments, assuming some basic returns. And you did this while maintaining a totally normal life. No sacrifice required, no burnout, just a system that works while you focus on the things that actually matter to you. Now, before you start talking about investing and trying to pick the next hot stock or cryptocurrency that's going to make you rich, you need to build an emergency fund first. I know this sounds boring. I know you'd rather jump straight to investing and watching your money grow, but here's why this matters more than you think. An emergency fund isn't just about having money for when something unexpected happens. It's about creating a psychological safety net that prevents you from making terrible financial decisions when life inevitably throws you a curveball. When your car breaks down or you face an unexpected medical bill and you don't have an emergency fund, what happens? You either sell your investments at the worst possible time, locking in losses, or you go into high-interest debt. And high-interest debt is a guaranteed loss. You're guaranteed to lose money paying that interest, and that guaranteed loss is almost always higher than any reasonable investment return you could make. So here's the rule. Before you start getting fancy with investments, eliminate high-interest debt. Use something called the debt avalanche method, where you list all your debts with their interest rates, pay minimums on everything, and throw every extra dollar at the debt with the highest interest rate. This saves you the most money mathematically and gets you out of debt faster. Once that's gone, the next dollar you would have sent to interest can instead go into building wealth. And the psychological impact of being debt-free is huge. You're no longer sending money to your past, you're building your future. That shift alone can reignite your motivation to keep building wealth sustainably. Here's something most newbie wealth builders don't think about when they're building a long-term wealth strategy, but it becomes increasingly important as your money grows. Taxes. Sounds boring, right? But here's the thing. You can minimize taxes through smart strategy. The biggest one is maxing out tax-advantaged accounts first.
A 401k lets you reduce your taxable income while your money grows tax-free. An IRA does the same thing with a contribution limit of $7,000 per year. A health savings account is like the Swiss Army knife of tax advantages. You get a tax deduction for putting money in, it grows tax-free, and withdrawals for medical expenses are completely tax-free. That's 3 layers of tax advantages in one account. When you maximize these accounts, you're essentially letting more of your money compound without the government taking a piece every year. That compounds over time into serious money. Someone who contributes $35,000 per year to tax-advantaged accounts for 30 years will end up with vastly more wealth than someone who puts that money in taxable accounts, paying taxes on gains every year. It's the same amount of work, the same amount of investment, just smarter structure.